Coming up on This Week in Google, I'm filling in for Leo Laporte, who's off hunting penguins or something. But Jeff Jarvis, Gina Trapani, and Kevin Purdy are here. We're going to talk about Google I.O. We're going to talk about what does WebOS mean for Android. We're going to talk about Android development and a whole lot more, even weigh in on the Huffington Post being bought by AOL. All that and more coming up on This Week in Google.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 81, recorded February 9th, 2010. Naked running on the net. This episode of This Week in Google is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. For a free 14-day trial, go to squarespace.com/twig. And by MailRoute.info. MailRoute is a secure hosted service that provides enterprise-grade virus and spam filtering to companies of any size. Try it right now, absolutely free, at MailRoute.info. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, the show that covers Google, the cloud, the Huffington Post, WebOS. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff this week. Joining us, as always, we're glad to have Gina Trapani from smarterware.org. Welcome, Gina.
Hello. Good to be here. Missing Leo, but great to be with you, Tom.
I know. Leo is going to be gone for a couple more twigs. Also with us, Jeff Jarvis from buzzmachine.com. Good to see you again, Jeff.
Hello there.
You're in sunny Amsterdam.
I have lamps upside down in a hotel room outside Amsterdam trying to get enough light to make this work.
I love that kind of commitment.
Committed to the art, you are.
Yes.
I brought some Chipotle chips so that I could try to fit in Leo's place.
Nice. Now you have to crunch them into the mic really, really closely.
And then sing a song about them.
That was like a bad idea.
There you go. That's a good one.
You guys watch Glee? All right. Leo.
2 new Glee episodes this week. 2. And that's all I'll say about it. It was a good week for Gleeks.
Leo is steaming his way towards Antarctica. Last we knew on Twitter, he was in the Falkland Islands taking pictures of penguins. So there is your Leo Laporte update. He called it a Gen 2 penguin. That's pretty funny.
Nice.
I like
the
that.
live Gen 2 penguin. Not the live CD.
Right.
The live penguin.
So let's start off talking a little bit about the WebOS announcement that came this morning. HP announced 3 new devices for WebOS. The HP Touchpad, it's a 10-inch device, 9.7 inches particularly, 1024 by 768 display. The HP Veer is kind of a tiny phone. I guess it would be similar to the Pixie. Maybe it's a replacement for that. It's 2.6-inch touch display, 5-megapixel camera, 8 gigabytes of storage. And the HP Pre 3, which is a portrait slider phone, the successor to the Palm Pre 2, 3.6-inch screen, HD video, 8 gig or 16 gig. So we're going to see the Pre 3 in summer, the Veer in early spring, and the tablet not until summer, and that's only for the Wi-Fi version. 3G version comes later. Gina, I know you were saying you didn't really pay that much attention to this announcement, but are you sad to see that they've gotten rid of the name Palm?
It does feel like the end of an era, doesn't it? Like Palm was kind of like the dawn of the PDA, which I guess we don't say that anymore, right? I am a little sad. I think they could have probably stuck with. So it's now just the HP Veer. It's not the Palm Veer or the Palm Pre.
No, it's the HP Veer, the HP Pre 3, and the HP Touchpad.
Yeah, I mean, Touchpad's a great brand. I mean, HP's a great brand. HP, manufactured, built, invented a lot of really important things. But I did like the Palm brand. It does feel kind of like the end of an era. Like they're retiring, I think, a brand that was pretty good and like that you associated with handheld devices. But really hasn't been in the game for a while.
Somewhere up in gadget heaven, Palm and Newton are talking to each other.
Aw. There they are. Look at them. They're right next to DEC.
And Alta Vista.
Yeah. The HP Touchpad, dual core, 1.2 gigahertz Snapdragon processor, 1.3 megapixel camera. It looks like a sufficiently nice tablet, don't you think?
It doesn't. WebOS is a nice operating system. There's one in my household. It's not mine. It's my other half's. And I guess this kind of represents a commitment to WebOS, right? I'm excited about good-looking mobile, operating systems. Kind of, more competition. What is the usage rate of WebOS compared to iPhone, BlackBerry, RIM, Android at this point? I'm not sure, but I imagine HP included this in their presentation today.
Market share is very small. So I haven't looked through the entire presentation myself. I've only looked at the vital stats. My guess is they didn't talk about the usage rate.
Because they didn't want to show the really small sliver of the pie.
Yeah, we're talking, 25% for Android, 25% for BlackBerry. We're talking 2% for WebOS right now, I think.
Yeah, it's smaller than Symbian, which is about to die. Did we all catch the memo that the new Nokia CEO wrote this week?
The burning platform memo, which is my favorite nickname for a memo since the peanut butter memo.
Exactly. It was awe-inspiring. And, you wonder, how Nokia could have gone so far so fast, and how even a new company, even though it's not new, but a new business can go down so fast. But then the second question is they're supposedly debating now between Android and Windows OS. I can't see how it makes any sense to pick Windows. Can you?
Well, I think there's more worry that they're going to pick Android. Let's bring in Kevin Purdy. We finally got on the line. He's joining us today as well. He's contributing editor at lifehacker.com and the author of an Android book. What's the name of your book again?
The Complete Android Guide.
Complete Android Guide, which you can find at completeandroidguide.com.
Yes.
What do you think about the odds of Nokia going with Android? Which, like Jeff says, in absentia, seems to make some logical sense.
It does, and they were so vehement, though, in denying an earlier rumor that they were going to use Windows Phone 7. They were so kind of prideful in saying, "Oh no, we would never use Windows Phone 7 for our main OS." It makes me a little skeptical, but I think it would be a great move, whether or not they do it or not. I mean, different
Which
matter.
would be going to Windows?
No, going to Android would be a really good idea, because then they could, my friend had always, some of my friends have always said that Android would become like Nokia, like the OS you don't even know you're using. You could totally brand Android in a way such that it wasn't so apparent that you were using a Google operating system. Nokia could totally brand and kind of image Android in its own image, but whether or not they do so is another matter.
So is HP better off owning Palm, or could HP have gone to Android as well? I mean, that's what I'm trying to get my head, or for that matter, Windows. They're a Windows vendor. I'm trying to get my head around where this landscape goes past iOS and Android.
Right, Jeff. And I think that they must have some confidence in the talent and the staff at Palm, that they feel like they can come up with something new on their own. Everybody liked WebOS when it came out, and thought that was a pretty good competitor to the iPhone. Just it never really managed to gain leverage. I think that they must feel like they can go it alone, or come up with their own ecosystem. But it feels like a pretty crowded market right now.
And in addition to the two phones and the tablet they announced, according to an All Things D report, Group Executive VP Todd Bradley, a personal systems group executive, said that introducing WebOS to our PC customers later this year will drastically expand the platform. So they're sort of moving into the Chrome OS space as well.
Right.
That was kind of the bomb they dropped at the end, right?
Yeah, it was almost missable. It just kind of sneaked it in
at the end of 2 hours.
Yeah, the 2-hour death march of an announcement.
Nobody could notice.
Yeah. Do we suspect a CR48 like offering from HP that runs WebOS?
Brave move. I mean, if they could do it, because even Google hasn't really kind of released CR48 beyond, the test group that they have.
Which I am not a part of.
Yes.
Aww.
Well, I haven't seen an update. I have one, and I haven't seen an update at all for one. They've done a few bug fixes, but there hasn't been like a huge jump forward. Unless they're just holding it all back or something. I'd love to see a vibrant ecosystem of web-only netbooks, but it just doesn't seem to be happening right now.
Let me play with that for a second. So if HP who obviously puts out tons of Windows products, uses its own OS. And if Nokia goes to something and doesn't go to Microsoft, is this bad news for Microsoft and Windows of various flavors?
Well, it's bad news for the carriers. The carriers are the most worried that Nokia would switch to Android, which I really don't think is going to happen. I mean, Stephen Elop's an old Microsoft guy, and you could overinterpret those sorts of things. But it's going to be a big deal if they drop Symbian or go de-emphasize MeeGo, their other operating system. I can't see them doing that to go to Android because that turns them into just another manufacturer, and they've built themselves on branding themselves as a unified experience. That's the Nokia experience. But the carriers are worried if they go to Android that will eliminate all the competition and all phones will be either Android or iOS and predominantly Android. And we get,
that's the question,
they have no more leverage anymore.
So why would you buy a HP, nay, Palm device? What's the main selling point to go with the mini OS?
I really couldn't tell you. I mean, they're even dropping Palm legacy support with WebOS 2.0, right?
Wow.
They made a big deal about how multitasking was really important for them. They're playing on the whole slides metaphor even more. It seems like their selling position in my early read is that this is a higher performance product than iOS or Android. Does anybody buy that?
Higher performance.
Those are my words, not HP's.
Until you put it on actual hardware and give it to actual people and they use it in their actual day.
Yeah, I want to see this thing in action where I can pick it up and play with it, because I was actually very skeptical of the BlackBerry Playbook until I got my hands on it at CES, and it worked great. And it has true multitasking and the ability to have, a couple of things running at the same time and switch back and forth really fast. That has impressed me. I don't think that's going to save BlackBerry on the tablet, but I think it will at least prevent them from getting entirely left behind. I want to see WebOS in person before I make any judgments there.
All right, I don't want to jump ahead here, but I'm dying to ask Gina. Now that you're getting some details about the Zoom, the first Android tablet, are you going to fork out $800 plus a contract?
Yeah, what are we looking at? February 24th is the release date for the Zoom?
Well, that's the leaked Best Buy page date.
Okay.
Motorola still hasn't given us an official date, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think I might be in on this.
Has been holding out, saying she's only going to get the pure, blessed Android.
Yeah, I have been saying that, and I'm jonesing for a tablet, I have to say. And so to me, it was like iPhone, iPad 2, or the kind of the first, the first.
iPad 2 is in the running.
Yeah, I'd be interested in checking out an iPad 2. So yeah, the Zoom is tempting. I might do it.
Wait. You're gonna jailbreak iPad 2 and try to run Android on it, or you're just gonna buy an iPad 2?
I want a tablet. I want a good tablet, right? So an iPad 2 might be it, right? But yeah, no, the Zoom. I also want an Android tablet. So
$800.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but very, very possible. I registered for Google I/O in the hopes that there would be a tablet giveaway. I don't know. Maybe that's hoping for too much.
Nice.
I was hoping for that in Davos this year. Nothing. No, I wonder, Murdoch, when they did the announcement of the Daily, they said at the end there are tablets outside preloaded with the Daily, and I asked on Twitter whether they were giving them away. I've never heard an answer.
There's a note here that sasays Google's saying no free loaners.
No,
I'm down. I think it's out of the freebie business.
I asked for a loaner from Google for the complete Android guide, and I got a no dice. You'd have to ask Motorola for that. So I'm interested, because that breaks from what I've previously experienced with asking Google for loaners. So
I don't think the Zoom's coming out. I'm sticking to that. Like the fact
$800. You have to decide whether you're paying a $300 I love Android tax. I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And everyone knows that I am cheap. So I don't know. It's very, very tempting though.
They never let anyone actually use it at CES. They only let that video play.
Let someone. Sorry, they let
No,
someone
go ahead.
use it at the Honeycomb announcement. They when I asked for a loaner, they said, well, you could have come out and played with it, at the Android 3.0 event.
All right.
Even at that Android 3.0 event, even on the stage demonstration, the video call with CeeLo was really rough. And
Yes.
And they still haven't confirmed. If it was going to launch February 24th, I feel like we'd know by now because they ran a freaking Super Bowl ad for it.
right.
And
Right.
this leaked ad from
point.
Best Buy. I'm just I'm trying to hide their identity.
Big Boy, which
We
is our
don't know.
other favorite stuff, Chipotle.
We don't know what company. It could be somebody like Best Boy
Agreeable Purchase has announced that they're going to have a Motorola Zoom.
or Radio Shark.
Radio Shark.
No, this ad also says that Wi-Fi will not work until you activate a data plan.
Oh,
That's really sleazy.
yeah.
Like, really?
I've had to.
Yeah, Apple even managed to make AT&T go month to month with the iPad, and we couldn't make Motorola agree to not even make you activate a data plan. Yeesh.
They have to activate for at least 1 month, but which makes you assume you can do 1 month and then cancel it. But then throw in the month with the deal when you're charging that much money.
Right.
I mean, you should never just disable Wi-Fi because somebody didn't pay. That's the whole point of Wi-Fi.
That's evil.
It actually takes the, well, I guess I was going to say it takes the burden off your network to encourage people to use Wi-Fi, but if you haven't activated a plan, that doesn't take any burden off your network. So I guess they don't care about that.
Yeah, the evilometer is definitely up in the 10 and 11 area on this one. Yeah.
Vapor hardware. Telling you. There's going to be a big announcement. Motorola will say, hey, we've run into production problems. It's delayed.
Are you serious?
I made this prediction after CES, and now I have to stick with it.
Give the odds.
Odds of seeing the Motorola Zoom by the end of this month, I will say there is a 27% chance
That we'll see it.
that we will see it.
Mr. Pessimist. Whoa.
Oh.
It is a short month, though.
That's true. I'll go all the way to the end of March and only raise it to like 36%.
Jeez. Wow. Are there any others at the CES that are working behind Android appropriate Android tablets that might leapfrog Zoom here?
Well, we got the LG tablet.
Right.
Haven't heard much more about that one either, though.
Dell was rumored to be working on a Android 3.0 tablet.
They did say
Dell
that.
supposedly says that as soon as the OS is ready, they're going to be shipping stuff.
Yeah, they showed off their Windows tablet yesterday, and they said they will have an Android version as well later this year. But that's also still later this year. Galaxy Tab 2. Haven't heard anything detailed on that. There really aren't any Android tablets besides the Galaxy Tab that is already on sale that have solid info behind them, are there? I think they're all a lie. I don't really think that.
It's all just
So,
smoke and mirrors.
Gina, would you consider the the tab formerly known as Palm?
The WebOS tablet, the VR,
Yeah.
No,
I didn't think so.
That was quick.
no, not at all. Just not enough usage and not enough. Just not enough interest for me.
And
And
no
also, I mean,
written
I'm developing for Android now, so I'm kind of gonna buy the platform that I want to develop on, which is part of the reason why I want to get the iPad. Is that I'm working on an iOS app right now, and I don't even have an iOS device, so it makes sense to add one to the arsenal. But no, WebOS isn't that interesting to me. Although, like I said, there's one in my household. It was a company issued deal, and it's pretty and it's nice and it feels good. But it wasn't a consumer choice. It was like this is what my IT department supports.
Don't you love that phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to hate that phrase. That's why I like working here. IT support doesn't support anything. I just do it myself.
Right. You have everything.
Free to
and
use
you
whatever I
do
want.
it all yourself.
All right, you mentioned Google I/O, Gina, and tickets sold out in less than an hour for
Kind of,
that.
sort of.
Kind of, sort of.
They didn't.
Well, Gina
really.
can explain a little better.
Yeah, I mean, so I got an email from Google last week that said, hey, you've been to Google I/O before, so we're going to give you a chance to pre-register for the event, which I did. And so they basically gave everyone the opportunity who went to the 2010 event to pre-register for 2011. So then they opened it up to the public on Monday morning, and then the rest of the tickets sold out in under an hour. So, I mean, my read on this is like the 2010 event, not only was it a great event, but you got 2 phones. You got a Droid and the Evo before the Evo had even been released. I mean, I was talking to a student who got the student discount, so his ticket was a couple $100. He was basically like, my ticket is more than, costs less than the cost of both of these phones, basically. So the giveaways were great, the event was great, and I think that a lot of people from the 2010 Google, I re-registered for 2011, so I imagine that they filled a lot of seats, in that pre-registration period. So I think it's great that they sold out in under an hour, and it's a lot sooner than the 2010 and 2009, but it wasn't really quite just an hour, that they filled up every seat.
May 10th and 11th in Moscone Center, if you're wondering when it's going to be. Gina, you're going to be there. Jeff, you going to be there?
No, I'm going to be on the East Coast teaching.
Okay. We will miss you.
I know. There'll be much fun going on there.
Maybe you can talk Gina into giving you some of her stuff. I'll be there.
Maybe I'll try. Of course, see, the thing is, if I came out, I'd stand there. Like I'm speaking tomorrow at a conference in Amsterdam, a media conference, and I'm the only guy speaking English. That's the way I'd feel at Google I/O.
Those speaking situations are always bad. I spoke in Amsterdam once, and I was the only person speaking English. It made me really nervous during the introduction in Dutch that I couldn't understand. I was like, what are they saying?
I'd be grabbing on to Gina and saying, what are they saying now? What does that mean? Translate that for me.
And then they'll all turn against you and notice that you are not one of them and drive you from their midst.
Leo and I are going to do some live
from
coverage
the bloodstream.
But Kevin, you mentioned you're going to be there as well. That's cool.
Yeah, Gina, do you think that most independent developers sign up for this thinking like, yay, free phones?
I mean, I didn't last year, but I'll be honest, after last year, this year, I did. I was like, oh, there's probably going to be a pretty good giveaway. I think developers sign up for it and they get it, they expense it as part of, their kind of company development efforts. I think there are a lot of development efforts that's going on.
If you had to justify it to, say, your boss, like Nick Denton, how would you do so?
I'd say, hey, you know how we keep getting complaints about how stuff doesn't work on Android because we don't have any Android devices around the office? Like, send me to this thing, and I will come home with Android devices that we can test the website on.
Snap. That works.
And you can record it and say,
catch Google executives in affairs. That's the way you get this.
Exactly.
Only way.
You could say, the founder of Lifehacker even agrees with me, and play that bit.
Indeed.
There you go.
All right. New numbers out for search engines. These come out rather regularly, and usually I'm not very excited about them because it's usually Google either goes up or down 1%, Bing goes up 1%, Yahoo goes down 1%, but they're a little more dramatic this time. Google only dropped 2%, but they did drop between December and January. They're now breaking it out as Bing-powered search and Bing.com to include Yahoo as part of the entire Bing ecosystem, I guess. So Bing-powered search went up 6%. Bing.com itself actually went up 21%, from 10.6% of the market to 12.81%, and Yahoo search went down 4%.
That's an alarm. What's the anomaly there?
It's got to be a typo. Like they went from a 10.6% share in December 2010 to a 12.81% share in January 2011. That's not 21%, is it?
Well, yeah, 10% when you start small.
Oh, it's a percentage, the change, like the 2.8. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But still, usually Bing only goes up, less than 1%. They went up just around 2%, just a little over. 2 percentage points, I should say.
It's all that Google SEO they're doing. It's all that Google results stealing they're doing.
It's all the copy.
Stealing results, yeah.
I really don't think that. I think that thing was so overblown, and I definitely don't think. I don't know if you guys know this, but I am in week 3 of a month of using Bing as an alternative to Google.
Really?
Wow.
Tell us about that.
It is now my default search on all my browsers. I still allow myself to use Google if I need to, but when I go to my default search, it uses Bing. I would say 90% of the time I don't even notice the difference. I'm looking for something, it comes up, I'm able to find it. Where I do notice the difference in a big way are in video and news searches. In video, it's a positive for Bing. So when I'm looking for a particular video, I actually find it in Bing. I almost never find videos in Google. I have to trick it into giving me the page that I want. by trying to find the actual page, or I just go straight to a source like YouTube, which is Google. In Bing, I'm able to find videos really easily. On the other side of it, news is horrible in Bing. If I know I read a news story and I actually have the headline and can paste the headline in, I still can't find it on Bing.
News is hard. That's why we should all use Daylife, parenthesis where I'm a partner. But news is hard. And to get the right sources and the right kind of, it's a whole different kind of categorization. I have a really stupid chart that I show at media conferences like the one tomorrow. And I say that media used to be discovery of media was based on brands. We went to the brands, we had to buy the publication, we had to go to the show. And then search came along and changed that around, obviously, where we have to ask first. But then to the side of that, I put a nodule, which is algorithmic, in that Google wasn't good at live. Only Google News made them be good at live. Algorithms are crappy at live and current. Algorithms need content to ferment like wine before they know anything about it. And then the next circle up, by the way, obviously, is human links, which is Twitter and Facebook and such. But yeah, the algorithmic piece, the ability to understand the language and understand the currency and the sources and cluster it together is, as they say, not trivial.
I find
you do great at I/O, Jeff. Not trivial.
Just say that again. That's not trivial.
That's
okay,
not
good.
trivial.
Gina. I need the IO glossary for how to fake your way through. That'd be a good story.
Well, maybe you could use Google Translate.
We do. We need to come up with common developer phrases. I think that's not trivial is a very common. That's my coded way of being that's not going to happen for a while.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about my own apps.
I don't have the link right now, but somebody wrote a great post that I tweeted yesterday for how to write a polemic book. And the funny thing is, my two books follow the rules to a T. You come up with one word, and then at the end of every paragraph, you use that word and say it all comes back to this. And then after the book's out, you come back and reinterpret any event in the world as saying, well, it's part of this same trend. So, last time it was Google understanding the world, but for me this time it's publicness. So yeah, I think we could do a whole language sort for Google I/O. I'd like that.
We should do that. I'm gonna start writing down developer phrases as I use them and hear them.
I would love to see a phrase cloud generated out of these talks.
Well,
good
in
idea.
that phrase cloud, Chipotle is up high too.
Nice.
Yeah, burritos, Crush, Glee.
I don't
that
think
would
Glee
also...
will be there though, right, Gina?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think too many developers are talking about Glee.
You can predict the next Malcolm Gladwell book by just looking at that cloud.
That's right.
There you go.
You can have it auto
written.
written.
Malcolm Gladwell book generator.
Indeed.
It's great.
There's a website. I wish we had the link for it, but it generates a Malcolm Gladwell book automatically. Just hit refresh, and there's another Malcolm Gladwell book.
Well, getting back to these Google numbers really quick. I mean, these search numbers from Experian. Are they significant, Jeff? I mean, is it finally worth looking at them? Because usually I just want to ignore them every month because it doesn't seem like anything
I
really
agree with you. I don't think necessarily. I think you take a blip up. I think what you have to do is look at a longer term trend. And Google last, I don't know what the current market share is, but they've been running around 67% U.S. market share. Yeah. And here in Europe, in Germany, where the Germans complain about Google constantly, that was a bad accent, it runs about 98%, 97, 98%, showing that media and government are quite out of sync. So, Google already is not in a search and has not been in a search monopoly position in the U.S. for quite some time. What's the next break point where it matters to Google? Well, you could say, 50%. Yeah, sure. It's going to take Bing a long time to get to there. Second, it's not really a search industry. It's an ad industry, and Google's way ahead there and does have much higher market penetration there, way more than Microsoft has. So from a business perspective, there's a lot of ego invested in those numbers, but I don't think there's a lot of business reality yet. Check me in a year. I could be wrong.
But yet, Google acts like they're under severe attack with this whole gotcha, we caught Bing with 7 to 9 results out of 100 being copied.
Tom, part of that, I think, is that Google, you listen to Google, you listen to Eric Schmidt talking not about Facebook as a competitor, but Microsoft as a competitor. You now see this Bing stuff. It is in Google's interests to seem as if they have hearty competitors, aplenty. Apple's a big competitor, Facebook is a competitor, Microsoft's a competitor. Monopoly? Schmonopoly.
Look, we have people trying to copy our results. We must have competitors.
Right.
They're also extra sensitive about spam results. People have made a big deal about that for a couple of months now. We've talked about it on Twig. You guys have talked about it on Twig quite a bit. Matt Cutts has a blog post up today comparing Google in 2000 to Google in 2011, really trying to show you that the results have improved. They're still fighting this FUD that Google's results are getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, Matt isn't a PR person though. Matt is, the lead engineer in the spam team. You know what I mean? So I think that Matt's a good guy, and I think that he takes a lot of pride in the general perception about Google search results, especially spam results. So it makes a lot of sense. I think this is great that he did this post. I think people tend to, when things are good, when they initially launch, I think later people tend to say, well, that kind of sucks now. Let's jump the shark. When in reality, things have gotten better. And I think that was Matt's point here.
Danny Sullivan in the very first comment on Matt's post says, last year you effectively dropped host crowding by putting up more results from a website for some searches rather than fewer. This is an issue that drives me insane. One result per site, subdomain, you name it. That's all I need. Especially with the use of site links, I simply don't understand why Google can't give me more variety in my results.
Well, kudos to Danny for having this conversation.
First post, too. First
yeah,
result.
Danny's
just write
a
first.
good journalist.
Yeah, he resisted the urge to just write first. All right, let's take a quick break and thank Squarespace, the fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. I use Squarespace for a couple of different podcasts that I do. Forecast, right here on TWiT. I use a Squarespace blog for that to keep track of everything, let people know when we have new episodes up, give people a chance to comment. It's really easy to use. You can make a good-looking site. I have no design sense whatsoever, and Squarespace is a savior in that respect. You can pick from hundreds of templates. They have I think they have thousands, almost hundreds of design templates to choose from. You can customize any design to fit your needs. It's easy to customize things like colors and move blocks around, but if you do know CSS or even want to learn a little bit about it, you can get underneath and customize it even more. The service includes modules to build your website, widgets like Flickr photo display. You can add Google Maps. You can have multiple people working on the site. Doesn't cost anything extra. They also adapt the bandwidth to your popularity. You're just paying your one fee, and they make sure that there's enough bandwidth there for your blog to be visited. So why don't you go check them out? You can actually import your old site if you want to see how your site looks in Squarespace. Take the site you've got now. Doesn't matter what it is: TypePad, Movable Type, Blogger, WordPress. Import it into Squarespace and try it out for free. We're giving away a 14-day free trial to sign up for a free account. No credit card needed. Just try it out to build out your website. Go to squarespace.com/twig. That's squarespace.com/TWIG. Why not give it a shot? Either import your site and see what it looks like, or just create something from scratch. Play around with it. You got 14 days. And see what you can come up with. I think you're going to like it. Squarespace.com/twig. We thank them for their support of This Week in Google. So on a rather serious note, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name. Is it Whale Gonim? Does anybody know?
I think they were saying in the video Gonim. It's Whale Gonim. Mm-hmm.
Whale Gonim. He is a marketing director for Google in the Middle East. He disappeared during the protests last week, and earlier this week was released from prison. He made a remark about how he had fooled his employer in order to go to the protests. I found this very interesting, that a marketing director at a big firm like Google would also be a leader of the protest movement. He was one of the administrators for the Facebook pages that were used to organize people.
Which is also kind of neat, too, that the tool he used was Facebook. But that's okay. That's only a smart online person recognizes the appropriate tools to use. He wasn't using
Wave.
Social tools, and that's okay. I think incredibly courageous man. I don't know if he knew what he was getting himself into when he did it, but the fact that he did, and also the story that I'm dying to hear is what did happen to get him out, how the protesters made him kind of their unofficial, though silent spokesperson to keep the spotlight on him. Was Google bringing anything to bear? These are things we don't know yet, but thank God he's out.
Yeah, thank goodness he is out. What a leader! And from purely kind of from a company perspective, I think that he's an incredible. I think he was representing Google really well. This was kind of like the internet. He's calling it the internet revolution. This revolution happened because of activity on the internet. And that word was spread through social media. He used Facebook. He used Twitter. But Google's been known to use Twitter. Maybe not Facebook, but at least Twitter to organize action. So I think it's incredible. I think he's been really articulate. And when he first went missing, Chris DeBona had tweeted that he was missing, and I'd just been thinking about him, worried about him for so long. I'm so glad that he's freed and okay. And what an incredible leader. I would love to know what his conversations with his managers are like at Google. What Google had to do with this, if anything. I don't know if we'll ever know.
Yeah, he was in prison for 12 days.
Oh. Yeah, like blindfolded and solitary, right?
Yeah.
The journalists who've been in prison have talked about hearing horrendous torture in prison and other things. It's wildly unpleasant and difficult to imagine. And when journalists are also kidnapped or taken prisoner, oftentimes journalistic organizations manage to keep that quiet. I suspect in this case the publicness of it was part of what helped to get him safely out.
Yeah, we're just really glad that he is out. He says, quote, "I'm not a hero, but those who were martyred are the heroes." He's broke into a chant of Mubarak, leave, leave. So he's not done, as are most of the protesters in Egypt, not done with this yet. Let's move on to some Android news. We talked a little bit about the Zoom earlier. Gartner had some more numbers out. Good news for Android OS sales, grew 888% in 2010. That's almost a useless number, isn't it?
Yeah.
880%.
Kevin's happy about that number.
Well, yeah. I mean, with the Verizon iPhone coming out, a lot of people have been kind of, friends and relatives have been kind of like, ooh, what do you think about Android now? And, it's it's funny to think that, that it's still growing pretty big, and it would take a large number of manufacturers, turning their back and walking away to make Android just instantly disappear overnight. But 880% is nothing to sneeze at, even if it is a kind of fake number almost.
Gartner and ComScore both put out numbers this week, and iOS, depends on who you're reading, seems to be doing great. Not losing that much market share or gaining a little. Versus, Android is obviously the big winner. And there's no doubt that they're taking it from RIM.
Right. What is the use case for having a BlackBerry now? Seriously, guys, what is it? Just hardware keyboard, or is
Canadian.
Is it your company? Yeah, being Canadian.
Canadian pride, is that what you're saying, Jeff?
Yeah.
Or your company just forces it on you. What does BlackBerry have to really recommend itself these days?
Nobody?
Anybody?
I'll take a stab. The BlackBerry Enterprise Server is loved by many who want to manage permissions on an IT network or have good security and not worry that somebody's going to break into the phone system somehow. Okay. So I think that's legit. I've also heard I've heard some developers say that they prefer BlackBerries because they prefer the keyboards on the BlackBerry devices. And they've got to do some terminal coding or whatever on their phones sometime.
Encryption and that kind of thing too. And generally, if your corporate overlords have a BlackBerry server set up, they're going to want to stick with that. But every time these results come out, it's always Windows Media and BlackBerry that lose out.
But go back to earlier in the show. It makes you wonder where WebOS has, whether the investment is at all worth it.
If they have a shot in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question.
And certainly speaks to even, that's the great thing about the Nokia story. Nokia owned the world, and on the burning platform, the new CEO yelled at him and said, how long has the iOS been out? How long has Android been out? Where are we? And it's lost.
Nokia's share of the smartphone market dropped 6.7% from 2009 to 2010.
To what?
They went phone sales to end users reached 461.3 million units. A 7.5% drop. That's for their entire phone sales. And then smartphone dropped 6.7%. I don't have the total number there, though.
And smartphone is always, of course, a kind of fluid definition of a phone that runs apps or something like that, but still.
But super smartphone, now that we know what it is.
Right.
A super phone. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to pick on WebOS because they're the underdog. They're very small numbers. How could they possibly make an inroad? But a lot of people made those arguments about Apple when they first came into the phone market. Not everyone, but a lot of people said, well, what does Apple know? How are they going to break in against the dominance of Symbian and BlackBerry and Windows Mobile? And that market has turned on its head. So I guess what you're saying, Jeff, to me, it sounds like it's hard to identify what that advantage is. WebOS is a fine operating system, conceivably. It works great, but what makes you choose it over Android? Yeah, no, that's a really good point. BOS is probably still one of the best operating systems I've ever used, but nobody used it.
Right. So I didn't mean to go back to that discussion, but that's what this is fascinating to me is that the momentum seems so strong. The cost of entry or re-entry into this is now so spectacularly high. How do you compete with free? How do you compete with a network of manufacturers? It just seems like if you're RIM and Nokia and HP,
I think it depends on deep pockets and being able to get developers involved.
Yep.
Apple has managed to be able to get developers involved because the demographics of the iPhone are such that people like to buy apps on it. They're tied in, they already had iTunes set up, and people who own iPhones really, don't mind paying $1.99 for an app. Android is backed by a company with huge pockets, huge pockets that could, whether or not they make money on the system itself, is almost like a secondary mission to getting people on the web and searching through Google. If RIM or HP had a long term enough game plan, I think that they could, somehow entice developers. But it's the third party developers in a large way that you have to get
Kevin, you raise
involved.
a really critical point. Is that the OS and mobile is not the end game whatsoever. It's obviously just a tool on the way. For the case of Apple, it's to sell hardware. For the case of Google, it's more signals to enable more relevance in search, content, and advertising. And it's a fight that Google needs to fight Facebook, which is a better signal generator. I like that phrase for our lives. And so you're right. It's not about the OS at all. It's about how it feeds the Uber business strategy. And neither RIM nor certainly HP really necessarily has that.
Although to say that Apple does make money on iPhones, much if you look at the graph, Apple makes tons of money on iPhones as opposed to most other manufacturers.
We agree there. What I'm saying is hardware is the real business model for Apple and sales of other products, so that works.
Right.
They have enough justification that they will invest in that OS because it pays off in other ways.
Sure.
And, for consumers, people bought the iPhone because they didn't want to carry around a phone in their iPod anymore, right? Apple had millions of iPods out in the market to begin with, so it made sense for people. And then with Google, it was like, I want a phone that's going to give me the web without a gatekeeper, full web access, being able to search easily. What is the compelling, from a consumer perspective, what's the compelling reason to buy another phone at this point?
Really would have to be like question. Cheap or amazing battery life, or they'd have to instantly come up with great apps that everybody wanted. The success, the better than Angry Birds, which would be pretty hard at this point.
Yeah.
What could possibly be better than Angry Birds, Kevin?
I don't know.
Happy Birds?
Agitated moles. I have no idea.
Did you guys see the guy that dressed up as kids as the Angry Birds and then took a photograph? I think it's on Laughing Squid. It's very, very cute.
No, but I saw Funny or Die did a real life Angry Birds where they built a catapult.
Oh, nice.
And actually, and it had like, big red rubber balls with the bird faces painted on them, and then set up the stuff, right? The wood pieces and everything, and put little pigs in there.
Sweet.
The thing is, they actually were able to knock it entirely down every time. Those structures are way less stable in real life than they are in the game.
I think that debating the physics of Angry Birds definitely goes into the coders, phrase book for sure. Tom, no, you're right.
Windows Phone 7, which is a really good phone if you lived in a soundproof bubble and had never read any news in the last 5 years. Windows Phone 7 is a really easy phone to use. My wife has one, and it's pretty nice. It's really big buttons and really big widgets, live updates, very nice. But even Microsoft, with all the cachet that they have, was not able to get everyone they wanted as a launch partner. They weren't able to get, I believe, they were not able to get Pandora on board right away, which is kind of a big deal these days. I mean, that's almost like a gold standard for smartphones. And there are all these new gold standards that exist every time a new phone or a new mobile device comes along. You have to have Netflix. You have to have Pandora. You have to have, really good Twitter and Facebook apps. And it's a pretty big fence to get over if you're going to come out with a brand new thing. HP and Palm and RIM would have to have really good apps in all those categories just to even garner the tech press's attention.
That's where something like Alien Dalvik by Myriad becomes really interesting. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but apparently at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, they're going to announce Alien Dalvik as a piece of software that will allow Android applications to run on non-Android phones. Is this as wonderful as it sounds?
I read a little bit about it today. It sounded pretty interesting, but it seems more like an unofficial hack, really, than something that mass merchants would want to have Android running on their devices unofficially, or
Yeah, it's essentially like virtualization. So the same way you'd run, say, Internet Explorer on a Mac by virtualizing it in Parallels or VMware, this Alien Dalvik and Myriad is a virtualization company, would run, say, on MeeGo and be able to run all Android apps on MeeGo.
It depends entirely on how well this works. And my initial reaction is I wouldn't want to do this because it would probably be slow and weird. But that's just sort of my experience with virtualization in general. I mean, I think, Android likes its memory and processor. And I just think putting that, Dalvik is the Java runtime that Android runs. It's all Android's operating system and apps are all Java. Dalvik is the runtime. So this Alien Dalvik is just sort of putting that runtime on top of these other phones. I don't know. This seems like kind of a niche side project for super nerds. I don't know that this is going to be a consumer thing, but I could be wrong.
Would you want it to work as a developer? Would you want your Android apps to be on every operating system and conceivably run everywhere?
In theory, but in practice as a developer, I want the app to work quickly and smoothly without any sort of hiccups or memory problems or force close dialogues. And I don't know. It depends on how well this works. It's hard for me to believe that this virtualization software that will work fast enough and well enough on non-Android phones to work well. But I shouldn't say that until I try it. But sure, I mean, as a developer, I want my app to be everywhere that it can be. I hope that my app is good enough that someone would want to install virtualization software to run my app. That would be nice. I just don't know how realistic that is.
We've got some app news. Google Translate was updated. Now, this was updated not just for Android, but also hits the App Store as well.
For the iPhone, yes.
I'm sorry, when I said App Store, that was very vague. I mean, it hits the iTunes App Store. It was previously available as a website. You would just go and get the HTML5 version. Does Google, are they able to gain an advantage by doing this where they have something available on Android for a while and then roll it out to iOS? So they're like, hey, we're platform agnostic, but you give a little edge to Android every time. Does that build up?
I really don't know anybody of my casual Android using friends who are, when I ask them why they got a Droid, they're like, "Ooh, Google goggles," because that's why. Because that was an amazing, I mean, a lot of Google's first run apps for Android are kind of nifty apps, and they're not necessarily must have, except for Google Navigation, which I must say is continues to be kind of a huge selling point for Android. But I really, most of the apps that go Android exclusive at first are just kind of neat things. I don't really see them doing the kind of power play like they did with the original Droid and driving navigation. So I can't imagine, but I would love to see the numbers. If they did polling on why people got their phone.
I love the idea of Google Translate, though. Don't you, Gina?
Yeah, Google Translate is an awesome app. I think it's great. It's on the iPhone. I mean, I think it's interesting, and I don't have numbers to back this up, but my impression is that most third-party first-run mobile apps show up on the iPhone first, right? So iPhone users generally get third-party apps first. I think that Google releasing internal Google apps on Android first, I mean, certainly they want to attract attention to their own platform first. There's also that pesky approval process that they have to wait for Apple, if they submit their app to Apple. But I think there's also just this like, hey, look, you can get cool Google technology on your Android phone, and like this is one of the things that you get when you get Android.
Here's my brain fart of the day, and I was gone because Swisscom in the hotel room charges me a friggin' fortune, and 8 hours in advance they cut me off. But anyway.
But you digress.
Yeah. You almost, I started fantasizing about a single-use product just for Translate for travelers, right? It's the Star Trek device that, as the flip camera proved the viability of light video, and now we don't need it because we've got our phones and so on and so forth. But I almost wonder whether Android could power a very simple single-use device like that, is to say Google. The problem is you need connectivity, but if you did a deal that the connectivity was only going to do occasional translations, it was really minor usage, you almost wonder whether you could build a device like that. I know it's kind of silly because how often do you really use it? How often do you really travel? If you need to talk to your servants and you don't speak their language, maybe you use it more often. But just in terms of thinking about how these OSs could be used in different ways to power different things.
It's a wider question, isn't it? Of in this world where we're getting multi-use devices in multiple form factors, which
right.
I remember reading about in Scientific American in the 90s, and the MIT folks at the time were saying, this is the way it's going to be. You're just going to have a big device at home that sits on in a cabinet, then you're going to have a smaller one at your desktop, and then you're going to have a littler one for moving around like a tablet, and then you're going to have a block, and they're all going to do everything. And that's pretty much what we've got. That's what's happening. But the question is there still room for single-purpose devices? When what was the name of the Twitter peak came out? Like everyone just mocked it because all it did was show Twitter, and it didn't even show all 140 characters in a line until you clicked through. That's obviously the worst example of it. But you bring up a really interesting example, Jeff, which is that's something practical. If I'm sitting in Sky Mall on my plane and Hammaker Schlemmer sells a universal translator for $400 that I can buy and carry with me on my business trips and will translate everything everyone says and vice versa, that would sound attractive.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, probably it's not big enough a device, but it just, I think we're thinking too narrowly about the use of these OSs. And the only thing I've seen that breaks out at all was the I mentioned it 3 times now, the Android ski goggles. See the map in your line of sight. Okay, cool. But I think that when you're connected, there are devices that are going to work on a very simple level, and the problem right now is the phone models don't support this. But certainly the hardware could and the OS could. But Android's the one to do it.
I guess would I choose a single purpose device like that, whether it's the translator or not, if I could also get that app and just have it on my phone and carry one less thing?
Will you still buy cameras?
I don't. But yeah, lots of people do. No, that's a good point.
I've given up the idea that I'm going to carry a separate camera. It's my camera phone, but I'm not a photographer.
Yeah, see, that's it.
That's the
I'm with
difference.
you.
No camera. Kevin? Sorry. Nexus 1 works for me.
Yeah, I guess you could call this the Scoble problem.
Which Scoble problem are you referring to?
There's a lot of those.
Scoble problems are we referring to?
Scoble will always carry lots of cameras, but that's Scoble.
Right. Well, and maybe that's it, right? Which is we'll want these separate devices when we're really enthusiastic about whatever it is they do, and want the extra performance that can be squeezed out of the device being specialized and optimized for it, like a DSLR camera. I don't think you'll ever see a phone that also will work as a DSLR camera. The form factors alone just don't compare. So yeah, I mean, I think that's where something like Android does have a huge possibility to become an embedded operating. What are the operating systems in DSLRs? I know a lot of the point and shoots work on embedded Linux of various flavors.
Really?
Which you can hack.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a business model for somebody coming up with a really awesome, third-party firmware for cameras that lets you, do crazy things like automatic tagging and geotagging and stuff like that. I don't know.
Trademark this group.
Indeed.
All right. AT&T is trying to really say they believe in Android. They have lagged behind of the major four carriers in the United States. Chief Marketing Officer David Christopher says of Android, they create highly functional, highly capable smartphones that run really well with our network, and they're rededicating themselves, starting with the Atrix. The Atrix is their big example. They say we got involved very early in the development of that product with Motorola and Google. And they say they don't want to do a lot of work to customize Android anymore. So are we finally going to see decent? Is the Atrix the change for AT&T, the sea change, do you think, Gina?
I thought it was the Verizon iPhone that was the sea change for AT&T.
I think that's the sea going the other way, though.
Yes. Yeah, the Atrix was cool. You guys, I wasn't at CES, but you guys all sort of was most of your top picks, right, for some of the coolest gadget that you saw at CES.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, this only makes sense for AT&T, and it's long overdue. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that this sort of story is running around the time that the Verizon iPhone got released.
We don't think we have to control every element of the smartphone at all. Finally, because that was the biggest problem, wasn't it, Kevin? They kept customizing Android in a way that made it awful.
If I'm not mistaken, AT&T has the worst track record when it comes to upgrading their Android phones too. I think literally at some point it was 0%. Like every phone and every device that had been delivered on AT&T's network had never been upgraded. My boss at Lifehacker, Adam Pash, he has nothing but quietly couched hatred for his Galaxy S on AT&T. I mean, for a long time, iPhone was all that really, it seemed like AT&T necessarily really wanted to support and upgrade, and they have a long ways to go. But, kudos to them for rededicating themselves.
All right, let's take a quick break. Thank our other sponsor for this week in Google today's MailRoute. MailRoute protects businesses of every size and individuals from spam and viruses. If you offer your own email, you operate your own email and your own domain name server, you want to check this out. It is a way to revive what might be an otherwise unusable domain name email address. I've done it myself. It absolutely works. Tom Johnson helped write the software that Microsoft acquired and turned into FrontBridge, which is packaged with Microsoft Exchange hosted services. And he then turned to killing spam, and he seems to have done it. I don't get any false positives. I've checked the vault a few times. Nothing in there that shouldn't have been in there, and I don't get any spam in my inbox that I use MailRoute to filter. In fact, I need to put it on all my addresses because it's just amazing how it makes your inbox usable again. You can try it out for free at mailroute.info, and as a TWiT listener, you'll get 10% off the life of your account. So there's no reason not to give it a shot. If you or someone you love can edit an MX record, you can live without spam. Give it a shot. Mailroute.info. It's $2 per user per month for 10 users if you're a small business, or $30 per user per year for single users. And we thank them for their support of This Week in Google. So who watched the Super Bowl?
Ooh.
Yeah, Kevin, you watched it?
Wow, really?
I was there.
Peripherally, I was getting ready for the
Chips.
Glee party.
Oh.
But not even for the commercials?
I kind of ran in the living room to watch the commercials. The Darth Vader commercial, very cute.
When you know they're all going to be on YouTube the next day, who really needs to watch the Super Bowl for the commercials?
It's true.
You know, that was the thing, right? As I missed the first half almost. I sadly caught the halftime show, but I missed a lot of the commercials. But it wasn't a big deal because I could go and watch them afterwards. Although apparently this is the highest rated television show of all time. It beat last year's Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I'm kind of a dad in reverse. I've only ever watched Super Bowl for ads, and then to have something to talk about with my son Jake, who ended up learning football around me. So he's teaching me football now. I actually kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I did.
That's pretty cool.
I decided to become a Jets fan and root for them, and got into watching the games to my surprise. I'm discovering my hormones late in life.
How did that affect your desire to see Super Bowl ads?
I didn't have to wake up to watch the ads.
Right. Didn't have to rouse yourself.
Yeah.
The big one was the Zoom. The big one in the tech sphere was the Zoom ad, which was a kind of almost tired at this point, kind of 1984 Apple-ish ad. Don't be like the others. Get the Zoom tablet.
We were talking about this on Tech News Today. It was sort of tired and old for us that are enthusiasts of technology, but it was incomprehensible for anyone who didn't know what it was about.
That's
Right.
my
If you
wife
didn't get
was
the
saying,
reference,
what the
it was
heck
just
that
kind of
about?
crazy.
Weren't there white earbuds involved? That was
Yes,
sort of
that was the only
overt.
funny thing was the white earbuds, but
It's like, I'm sitting there. I actually heard stories of other people who were in big groups watching the Super Bowl and were then explaining, like, well, you see, it's a metaphor for Apple had a Super Bowl ad 1984, and now Apple's kind of become the. Never mind.
Right,
$3
which is a
million,
good amount, which is a great amount of
flush that
subtext to
down.
like. It's a huge amount of subtext to throw out for people who are watching this in a loud living room or a crowded bar.
Yeah.
Like, oh look, I catch a cultural reference on the screen.
Oh, I still don't get it. But when can I buy the product? We don't know. How much it's going to be? We don't know.
But I'm ching.
There was also the Sony Ericsson Xperia Play ad with the freaky thumbs being sewn on to the Android doll.
That's like nightmares.
Yeah.
Did you see that, guys?
I have not seen this one.
Oh,
Is it yet another scary
You gotta see
Android
its
ad?
thumbs are being implanted onto the little Android green man, and it's really nightmare stuff. It's freaky.
Ah, yes, I'm watching it now. Indeed.
Yeah,
Dark.
so it's all back
scary.
alley, dark, scary. Exactly what you're saying.
All the Android ads are like this. What is up with that? The raining
I know.
robot.
Oh my goodness, it's really.
Well, because putting thumbs on an Android doll is illegal in most countries, so you have to go to a back alley to do it.
Wow.
It's just too.
I have no idea, like, why. Why are they why is it dark and dirty? Why are they in a back alley?
You know, and it makes me wonder, too, there's got to be some control over the Android brand. Who's in charge of the brand at Google that allows that to happen?
It's also awesome
And
for
obviously
Asian culture
must
to
have.
imply like you have to send an Android to a Vietnam or Thailand to get thumbs onto it because they only do black market thumb appendectomies on.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's really that's really what is hitting me the most. It's like, why couldn't he just go to a nice, clean hospital
I know. That's awesome.
and get his
Where
thumbs?
the walls are white and the nurses are pretty.
Yeah.
White, that means Apple.
It
No.
could- oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Android is the dirty underground. And the question is Sony Ericsson Play is the PlayStation phone, but they're not branding it that way. They're branding it as Android.
Right. Which, Android does have a good amount of games now that are pretty cool, but whether people, like Jeff was just saying, do people need a dedicated Android game device if they have a phone? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think some. It's weird to me. The people who really would want that are probably people who would rather have the next generation PlayStation, a
Right,
portable
yeah.
PSP, and then carry a separate phone. But I guess there could be a cross section in there, like we were talking about earlier, who just don't want to carry more than one device.
Right, the casual gamers, right, aren't gonna get the dedicated device, and if they do, it's gonna be the next
We all
PSP
just
or
said we
something like
gave
that.
up cameras.
Yeah,
Who'd have
exactly.
thunk?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Jeff. And what did you? I have to ask. What did you think of the Groupon ads?
Gave me another reason not to like them, and I've already got some.
Now, if you haven't seen the Groupon ads, they would start as if they were some kind of public service announcement or an awareness-raising charity type thing. There was one about the oppression of the people in Tibet, one about destruction of the rainforest, but then they would change halfway through and be about getting a discount. So the one about the oppression of the Tibetan people turned into a discount on Tibetan food at your local Tibetan restaurant.
Tibetan curry noodles.
Tibetan curry noodles, that's right. And then the one about the rainforest turned into like getting a Brazilian wax or something because not all forests are bad.
Yeah.
Or not all forests are good.
I didn't know those were Christopher Guest either. So now his track record has diminished slightly.
Well, now, with the way Groupon, let me see if this washes with any of you. The way Groupon tried to defend this was, we actually didn't say anything bad about these causes. Saying go get Tibetan noodles does not in any way diminish, trying to work for the plight of Tibetans. It doesn't make fun of them. And saying, getting a bikini wax doesn't have any effect on the Amazonian rainforest. And in fact, we raised awareness about issues that wouldn't have been talked about in a Super Bowl where it is apparently okay to advocate, violence and sexism in all of your ads. We're getting in trouble for this.
And so they were making fun of their customers, really. They were making fun of what you guys talk about on TWiT all the time, which is that, Groupon has a lot of salons and spas and, niche restaurants. And they're saying, haha, you're more likely to get a Brazilian wax than to care about the rainforest in Brazil. But then on the website,
kind of
they actually
exploits the cause.
Right.
Does,
on the website,
totally
they actually had fundraising links for those causes. But whatever, when you're watching the Super Bowl and you're like, hey, look, there's Timothy Hutton making fun of Tibet, it doesn't really... it doesn't really register that well. It's not a really easy thing to explain in 30 seconds, the deep level of satire they were aiming for.
It should have come with a manual.
Right.
A reader's
to read
guide.
more about what this ad was supposed to mean, go to groupon.com/ads.
A viewer's guide to the Groupon commercials.
Now, how about Joan Rivers? Speaking of offensive things that turned it around, I think that Joan Rivers' GoDaddy was brilliant, even though we don't like GoDaddy on the show.
There you go, Jeff.
I use GoDaddy. I'll come out of the closet. But
a lot of registrars had promotions ready to go, like that moment, like drop GoDaddy, leaving DG.com. Like ready to go, like Namecheap, I think was one of them. They all had their like promotions ready to go for like, hey, sick of GoDaddy, go ahead and sign up with us.
They were anticipating the fourth year of offensive ads. Like, you didn't like
Indeed.
the GoDaddy ad? Like, switch to us. I mean, that's, that says something about the commercial.
I didn't see the Joan Rivers one. I saw the other one where they imply that two models are going to walk naked onto the set, but then they say, go to the website to see the part we couldn't show on TV, and I never did.
That was dumb.
Yeah. And that was typical. That's what I expected out of him. What was the Joan Rivers ad?
Just you're getting ready to see the body, you're seeing the whole thing, you're seeing the legs, and then finally the lights go on and it's Joan Rivers with padding sufficient to float an airline.
See, now that's the same concept as Groupon.
No, it's different because they were making fun of themselves.
That's true.
Unless you want to think Joan Rivers is a cause.
Well, in some
She
cases,
could be.
in some ways, maybe she is, but you're right.
There was a Living Social ad that was like, Living Social changed my life. And it starts out with this guy, and then you can see him like go get a mani-pedi and go admire these shoes and go get a makeup job done. In the end, he's like a total transvestite, like completely. He's like, it changed my life. And he kind of like sachets by. I like that a lot better than, I don't know how many like manly football watching guys thought it was better, but I like that a lot better than the Groupon take for sure.
And then Salesforce was there with their social networking tool for enterprise.
Starring the Black Eyed Peas and very confusing.
But it really made me feel like it was 1999 again. Just, seeing kind of a cheesy .com ad. There were a lot of tech ads in the Super Bowl this year.
It says
They
something
also
about
had Best Buy doing its buyback program.
Oh, right, with Justin Bieber and Ozzy Osbourne, which, funnily enough, I actually knew that ad was coming for that product. And after the ad was over, I had to stop and think to remember what it was for. Yeah. I didn't think they did a good job of explaining the buyback program, but it was very funny.
It's a complicated program.
Right, because you have to pay in advance to be able to sell your device back later.
What?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Oh, Best Buy.
It's like buying insurance. It's like, oh, if you give us a little extra money now, then you'll be able to trade this in for the new phone, laptop, tablet, whatever, when it comes out.
Can you ever trust the people who are trying to sell you $120 cables?
No.
Like, can you ever really say, oh, they must have a program based on Merritt and
Well, the only thing about
cost
this
savings?
one is the price is all set going in. It's like the warranty stuff that stores sell you, as a rule, doesn't work. In this case, I think the price is too high, but you use, you can sell it on your own on eBay, which we all promise to and don't do. We can use our wonderful advertiser here on Twig. Remind me of the name real quick.
Gazelle.
Thank you, Gazelle. And now, obviously, it's worked well enough for Gazelle. The Best Buy is getting into it. You pay $59.99 up front. If you buy a $1,000 thing, in 6 months, they'll buy it back from you for $500, and that's guaranteed. Going down from 50% over 6 months down to 20% over 2 years. Those prices are high, yes. But the interesting thing is now, to me, the bigger deal here is Gazelle proved a market. They proved this middleman for second use to be able to trade in and get the new cool thing market.
Yeah,
and now it goes mass.
As a big Best Buy shopper, I would not trust them on any of this stuff, though. It's probably not worth it. You can easily go to Gazelle, or there's a couple other Gazelle competitors out there that do the same sort of thing and get more money than you could get by having to pay in advance. That's just, I go to a place like Best Buy because it's convenient, because I don't want to have to wait for it to come in the mail.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Real quickly, Google got new office buildings down in L.A. Frank Gehry designed office building. They're apparently a travel destination. If you look in travel books, they're a building with giant binocular-shaped facade, a fixture in Venice, California, near the beach. This was announced exactly the same day as Facebook announced their new corporate headquarters. They're moving into the old Sun campus in Menlo Park, often referred to as Sun Quentin because of its architecture.
Nice.
But everybody's getting big, everybody's expanding. I don't know if there's much.
Schmancy digs.
Yeah, I don't know if there's more to say about that. Yeah, we're getting close to wrapping up. So let's get into the tips. Kevin, do you have one to pass along to us today?
I do, and this was actually the source of a little back and forth on a Google group I saw recently. The email app for Android, so not the Gmail app, but the standard email if you were using your email through a corporate server or Exchange or something like that. Maybe Gina has a nicer way of putting it, but it kind of sucks. The email app is not that great, or at least a lot of users have a lot of complaints about it. And it's gotten a little better over the few Android versions, but to a lot of people, it's not powerful enough. It's nowhere close to as good as the Gmail app. So search the Android market for K9 Mail, like you would say, like a dog, K9 and then mail. And that is an app that continues to be pretty amazing in terms of supporting lots of different features, giving you all kinds of IMAP folder control. Basically, if you don't like the email app on Android, you're going to love K9 Mail. There was a really interesting discussion recently, or at least I saw it recently, about whether or not it was going to get merged into the email app, and because they're both open source projects and whatnot, and Google has said that they're not going to just kind of wholesale import this kind of interesting fork of their email app. But if there's a feature that's missing from Android from the email app, and it's probably in K9 Mail. So search the Android market for K9 Mail, grab it, and you'll have a lot more control and much more easy use for your non-Gmail email on Android.
These are my favorite moments in Twig when right before you're even finished talking, I'm off searching, ready, and downloading.
Oh, and now you can grab it from the Android market. You can go on the web browser right now and fling it to your device, which is such an amazing thing for bloggers in particular, to be able to point people to actual web pages.
And it's amazing. Permalinks to apps. It's crazy.
Oh, my world.
I know. Yeah, that's a huge innovation. It's letter K, number 9, right?
Right,
And
exactly.
then mail. All right, Gina, what do you got for us this week?
Cool. My tip is also for folks getting their email on their phone. This is actually for Gmail users. The web-based version of Gmail, which you're probably using if you use an iPhone, if you're not using the built-in Mail app, now has priority inbox support. So if you've been using Mail.app, do you use Mail.app on your iPhone, Tom?
No, I don't. I just use the built-in
like the built-in Mail client.
IMAP. I use IMAP.
The IMAP. If you use the web-based version of Gmail and you have enabled priority inbox in your Gmail inbox, you can now have access to the priority inbox.
That's pretty nifty.
Messages, yeah. So the important messages, the messages that Google thinks are important.
All the messages that aren't from PR people.
Right, exactly. So when you first go to Gmail in your web browser on your phone, you go to your regular inbox. But if you tap on the menu button and go back, you can see that priority inbox will show up. So you can see, you can say, just show me all the email marked as important and unread, which might be a little easier when you're working on a small screen.
Oh, that's cool. I have the Mail app and I have all my accounts. I have a Yahoo and a Gmail and a couple others. And so I just like to read it all in one place. But, I would like to take advantage of priority inbox. That's pretty attractive.
Cool.
All right, Mr. Jeff Jarvis, we have a number today.
Bit of a cheat.
Is it? Okay. It's related to the big story of the week, though.
Yeah, it's 315, which is $350 million, which is the price that AOL, of course, is paying for Huffington Post. Much talk about that this week. Happened on Monday. I weighed in. I think it's a smart move. I think that if you saw the PowerPoint that was leaked last week to Business Insider about AOL's content strategy, it made it look quite like a mechanistic animal farm, and really kind of showed there isn't a content strategy. Tim Armstrong's view is to be a gigantic content company so we can be a big gigantic ad company. Ariana, I think, brings humanity to that. She's been brilliant about getting people to want to use a platform. Yes, some controversy, they do it for free, but nobody puts a gun to their head, and she provides some value for that. I cross-post things at Huffington Post because I get seen. And she has the value of aggregation, and she understands the value of links and social. Importantly, I think that Jonah Peretti, who was the head of technology at Huffington Post from the start, was getting no attention at the beginning, but then people were coming back around saying, don't forget the value that Jonah added to Huffington Post to make it really easy to create incredible new applications and new metrics to make Huffington Post work. So Ariana is going to take charge not just of Huffington Post, but also of all of the content at AOL, including, yes, even Michael Arrington.
Gadget and TechCrunch, right?
Josh Topolsky and Michael Arrington report to Ariana Huffington. We're sure about this. She's not just being brought in as a head of editorial, but she's out of the reporting chain.
She's vice president in charge of all things content.
All right.
So that'll be fun to watch. Harrington evidently asked whether she was going to go to 4-hour staff meetings like he's had to go to. Nick Denton said that they gave out too early. Others said the price was too high. We'll see where this goes. But the interesting thing to me was in this that I asked Monday, or I've long asked, why didn't any publisher start Huffington Post? Why didn't the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC? The only company in the world that came close was The Guardian starting to come in as free, but more as a statement about the relationship with the public rather than as a business. And I think the reason is because Huffington Post was just too populist. It gave too much respect to us, the people, and big media companies to this day can't quite swallow that. Whereas AOL is looking for a content strategy, and there is Ariana. And I think that final thing to say about this is that when she started, when Ariana sat down to the keyboard, lots of people laughed, including me. I was wrong. She built an incredible company, and so now they're being paid $350 million for that. So I think it's well worth watching where that goes. Now the next question becomes, of course, immediately, who's next? Henry Blodgett was laughing on Twitter today that Andrew Ross Sorkin was asking him about the rumors that Business Insider is in play. And Henry saying, what am I supposed to say? And Andrew's saying, well, usually you should say that I don't comment on rumors. And there's talk of maybe Gawker's up for sale. And of course, I think the rumor we should start right now, here and now, before your very eyes, that TWiT's in play. It's huge. That Leo's not off playing with penguins. He's negotiating with gigantic money out there.
Well, Leo's out of the country.
Either that or Why don't we just sell it out from underneath him?
Yeah.
He gets back and he has a new boss.
Lisa, can you do that? She signs the checks. No, I wow. Can you imagine? I can't. Actually, I can, and it frightens me. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't
think Leo would go to work for a big media company because he so disdains them.
That's why he's here. Yeah.
Show them wrong and rather be here. But it is interesting to ask. I mean, so that's why the New York Times, CNN, et al. Never would have bought Huffington Post either.
What about something like a Revision 3 or a Next New Networks or, you know?
Well, that's the question. And so where do these kinds of companies go? And is there a roll-up for the likes of TWiT? I love talking about this behind Leo's back, and we'll see what he says when he gets back. But I think that what it says is, importantly, that these new media ventures, such as the ones that Ariana and Leo have started, have real value.
You know,
and that they are truly new, and that matters.
That memo that you were referring to earlier from AOL was scarily familiar to me. And it's what happens when you have an editorial company that is no longer run by the editors. Or that not even no longer run, but where the editors no longer have a voice. And I believe what Tim Armstrong is doing is trying to bring in strong editorial voices to counter what he sees happening in his own company. Because you could be the CEO of a company who believes strongly in content and yet not be able to influence the people who work for you far enough that way. And so you need to balance out the equation. Because if they followed that, I mean, I know I've talked to some people who are really into SEO and into marketing. They thought that memo was brilliant. That's exactly what, it's like, no, there's huge imbalances in that regarding the quality of content and things that are going to end up narrowing and blowing off your audience. The only question I have about Ariana Huffington is, will she be too divisive internally, because she has a public persona of being a partisan and having a particular political point of view, and now she's going to be in charge of a gadget blog, but TechCrunch more, I think, to the point that you could see a lot of headbutting there, which would be less productive.
Let me put it this way, Tom. I think that Ariana could charm even Michael Arrington.
Wow.
Yes,
okay,
it's true.
Fair enough. All right, let's finish up real quick. I've got a tool for you. I have just recently switched over to Chrome as my primary browser. One of the things I miss from Firefox, thank you, is NoScript. I am a huge fan of NoScript, and when I say primary browser, I mean that. Like, I still use Firefox and Opera and Safari, in varying amounts, but Chrome has become my go-to. And so I found NotScript at chrome.google.com/extensions. You can just do a search for NotScripts and Chrome, and you should find it. NotScripts allows you to take control of the scripts in a very NoScript-like way. There's a few limitations in the way Chrome handles its API that don't allow it to do exactly what NoScript does, and they're actually very good in the documentation of laying out what it is that they don't do and what workarounds you could have. For instance, you can turn off Java, you can turn off JavaScripting in Chrome, and then allow NotScript to whitelist stuff. It's a little less convenient than NoScript. It also doesn't provide some of the clickjacking protection that NoScript does. But hey, it's the best thing I've found. And the only real disadvantage of it is you have to set up a password for it in a user file yourself. You have to go use a text editor. Not that big a deal. Just again, not very convenient. But once you got it up and running, it just gives you a little pyramid up in the address bar that you can click on, and you can approve scripts temporarily. You can approve scripts forever for certain sites. It comes with a whitelist preloaded, so that things like Google.com are already there, and you can edit that whitelist yourself. So it's better to me than any kind of like naked running on the internet that you would have to do otherwise. So I recommend it.
Naked running.
That's what I feel like when I'm just allowing any script to execute.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing I would say.
Well, you're in Amsterdam, though.
There's lots of naked running in Amsterdam.
Bicycle riding.
Yeah.
I actually rode a bicycle tonight to lunch and to dinner because there's just no cabs in this weird hotel I'm in. out in the middle of nowhere in the suburbs of Amsterdam. So there I am, looking rather like a scene out of the Wicked Witch of the West on a bike.
But if they've got an entire garage full of bikes, though, at the hotel, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Amsterdam's a bike city.
That's pretty cool.
Were you naked, though? That's the question.
No, too cold.
It's always the question. Not this time of year. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being on the show. Kevin, Purdy, let folks know about your book and where they can find your work on Lifehacker.
Okay. Well, at lifehacker.com, which has a brand spanking new design that you may or may not have heard about, and at the Complete Android Guide, which is completeandroidguide.com, which is a how-to guide for Android and is getting updated now to include things like K9 Mail.
Gina Trapani?
Kevin.
Yeah?
Kevin, wait, you can tell us, what do you think of the design?
I like writing for Lifehacker.
You know what? I'll tell you, Jeff, I like the new design. I'm a big fan of Lifehacker and IO9. And you know what? You can scroll down in that right side forever if you want to see the headlines of things. It works fine for me. I don't know why.
Sorry, Kevin. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
That was great.
I enjoy entering text in the CMS.
Now that we've endangered Kevin's job, Gina, how are things going at smarterware.org?
Things are growing great. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, smarterware.org or on Twitter. And you should buy my app. It's search for To-Do Text, Android Market. That's my awkward plug.
I am also a big fan of ThinkUp. I use it. I run it as well, especially now that I can just run it with the auto updates through the RSS. It's great. So take a look at ThinkUp as well, folks. Jeff Jarvis, thank you for staying up and being with us in your wonderfully lit hotel room.
I feel like I'm being interrogated. I can't wait to put this back
You
up.
don't know the lengths this man went to even be able to appear in some kind of light. So we thank him for that. Of course, buzzmachine.com, and let people know where else they can find you on the net.
That's pretty much it. Working on the book, Public Parts. The first manuscript edits going on with the editor right now, so we're getting there. Out this year.
Woo! Congrats.
Congratulations. That's great.
Well, I'm not there yet, but...
I mean, well, getting that far is still worthy of congratulations.
That's no small shakes.
Yeah. Leo Laporte will be out for one more This Week in Google. So I'll be back next week hosting with Jeff and Gina, and then Leo will be back in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll see you next time.